Welcome to Skills to Pay the Bills. We have a fantastic show for you today. Our special guests are Ms. Cynthia Karnak, founder and chief executive officer of GovPartners, and Mr. Jeff Beck, director of contracts of GovPartners, located in Ashburn, Virginia. GovPartners is a woman-owned small business and also certified as a small woman and minority-owned company, providing complete acquisition management support services, including third-party evaluations, program management, deployment, and staffing support. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Cynthia Karnak and Jeff Beck to Skills to Pay the Bills. Hello, how are you, Cynthia?
Good, how are you?
Thank you so much for coming today.
Thank you for having us.
And Jeff? Thank you for putting off your out-of-town trip just a little bit longer so you could be with us today.
Absolutely. Thank you for having us.
You're welcome. Listen, tell us all about GovPartners and how did you ever come up with that cool name?
Well, sure. I mean, we started in 2009, and the basis behind the name and the logo was to be able to bring government and commercial sectors together. And in my experiences in the 20 years I worked in the government, with the government, a lot of the commercial carriers or contractors would think of the government as not a customer. So they would treat them as it was a right and not a benefit. So I wanted to kind of bring in that this is a partnership and the government is just as important of a client as any other commercial customer and should be treated as such. So the logo in itself is meant to represent that, with .gov representing the government sector. For .gov, all of the websites typically are .gov, and the partnerships, the color changing of the commercial sector and bringing them together with a little bit of excitement, because everybody thinks of the government procurement process as kind of something that you want to put off till later because it's not that much fun. So we wanted to bring a little bit of excitement in it. So that kind of made the little part of the explanation point in the front. So,
right.
Yeah.
Well, now you say you were with the government for 20 years? That's
well,
a
I was working with the government in the commercial sector, in different, mostly in the transportation sector. Mm-hmm. My background was director and vice president in capacities of military sales and procurement. So I worked with a lot of the government contracting officers that procured services for air, ground, and sea transportation modals. And so the way I started, I got the position, I was working in government international relations for World Airways, which is a charter company that had been in business since 1948. And they I was working on a lot of the legislative, international affairs, bilateral agreements, those type of things, and also with contracts with our crews. And they said, you're really good with contracts and interpreting them to make sure that we are getting the best out of our money. So they said, we want you to work on government contracts because the contracts are something that needed to. So I got this one contract. It was 200 pages, long, and I said,
200 pages?
Yeah, so I started reading through it. So I just called the contracting officer who was at Scott Air Force Base in Illinois and said, I want to come and sit with you so I can make sure that I understand all the interpretations as you see it and that we're on the same page on how we are supposed to be doing this. And so that kind of started a relationship to where they kind of trained me the way that they saw things. And so every time we had, a issue or question internally, I was more kind of facilitating a lot of the issues for the government. And then I started proposing things to them that would save them money.
Wow.
For example, they were procuring an airplane that had 360 seats constantly, and they were only having 160 passengers on the segment, and they paid for 360 meals, and we had to cater to 360 meals. And I said,
and then throw them away?
Yeah, we throw them away. It was a waste.
What a waste.
Yeah, so I would propose ways to save them money, even though we weren't going to be getting paid that money for the meals. It didn't really make any sense to waste the food and the money. So just little things like that, and segment, just looking at ways we can cross-utilize some of the aircraft so that they wouldn't have to pay so much. So I started trying to work on, things to streamline the contract to save them money, and it became more of a relationship that was a partnership. And so when some of them would retire, they would say, you're one of the carriers that I felt was part of our organization, and that developed a trust, and they appreciated it. So I kind of wanted to continue that type of environment and kind of pass that along to some of the companies that we work with that are getting into the the government contracting field to make sure that they understand that that type of relationship is really important to start with the government, and to keep it going from a trust perspective and a relationship perspective.
Right. Thus, GovPartners was born.
That's correct. That's GovPartners was born.
Jeff, tell us a little bit about yourself and then how you came to be a part of GovPartners.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been with GovPartners a little over a year. I came from, before that, managing federal contracts for about 30 different agencies in the health and wellness environment. So basically our military here in the DC area are in commercial office buildings, but part of their function is to be able to be duty ready, basically, and part of that is to make sure that they're in physical fitness shape or they have the wellness component, and because they're not on bases, they need to have that. So the federal government's required to secure services for them from a commercial environment when they're not on a base or it's not being provided for them. So I did a lot of those components working with different agencies, as well as managing entire properties for facilities-based centers, where we were managing the entire center for the U.S. Census Bureau, the FDIC, and some other agencies along the way, the Patent Trademark Office. So spent about 10 years doing that type of piece prior to joining GovPartners and jumping into some additional industries with the government component that I was familiar with.
And the capacity that you play in GovPartners, is that with contracting?
It is.
Okay.
It's in a role supporting the team in a project management aspect and an operational aspect, and then it's supporting the clients with their individual contracts and interacting with the government officials where appropriate with those particular contracts.
Right. Well, I was on the website and I didn't get a chance to really get real heavy into it, but there were a couple of models that caught my eye. And I didn't know what they meant, so I said, let me see if I can find that out. You talk about marrying the concepts of capture management and contract compliance.
Correct.
How does that interact? How do they interact with one another?
Well, it is. It kind of goes in line with how we formed our tagline, which is prepare to win and perform to expand. Because capture management is, prepare to win is getting that contract, going out and sourcing that opportunity and then capturing it. And then once you capture it, then you have to make sure that you are operationally complying with the contract to maintain that contract and keep it. Because a lot of the contracts for government cycle times are 5 years. It's a base period with 4 option periods, or it could be, a base period with 2 option periods, but they're typically a long term. So the government's not going to exercise the additional option periods if you're not performing well, and if you're not complying with the contract as you said you were going to. So, if you say you're going to do something, it's really important that you do it,
right.
And that there's people in place that knows what you promised to do in that contract response, and they can actually execute it to satisfaction. So the whole full cycle of, okay, now we've gone out, we've identified these contracts, now we were successful at winning them, and now the hard part really is, executing it and then managing it and making sure you're compliant throughout the contract term.
Right. Now, are you and Jeff working together every day, or do you have your part and you're out doing that and you're in another, and then you collide? Yeah. At some point you collide.
I would say a little bit of both of those things along the way.
Yeah.
We definitely function in specific projects along the way, but we also interact with almost everything that we do on a regular basis because we are a small company. That interaction is key not only for us, but for our clients as well.
Give me an example of what a day is like, starting out in the morning.
Sure. I mean, we have contracts that we manage for our clients. So typically we come in and the first hour and a half, we're kind of catching up on what we need to do, for our project or our specific task, and preparing for, we have a 9:30 daily meeting that we call our operational sit rep, which is the operational situation report. So it basically, everyone has their list of, what they're working on, what the action items are, and what we need to do. So then we have that meeting, and based on that meeting, then we go back and, kind of execute all of those tasks that we identified in the meeting and talked about. So right now we are heavily in a period where we are expanding one division. We've added a division to our company called the Customer Informational Analyst Division.
Wow.
And it is specifically for the third-party evaluation services.
Okay.
And that's, kind of something that we're spinning off that's going to focus specifically on the transportation industry and help with evaluation and observation services to help their customer service experiences improve from a outside party input. So we've had a couple of contracts that we've been working on with that, and now we're expanding in that sector.
So daily meetings do work.
Daily meetings.
Yeah, I
do work.
worked for a company once, and I don't know, they read some book or something that said that meetings were outmoded, and we never had meetings. And nobody ever knew what they were supposed to do.
Yeah.
It was nuts.
No, yeah, we've gone through phases. In the 5 years we've been in business, we've gone through phases where people have different preferences on how they want to communicate, and we've had periods where people have decided that they want to just communicate via Skype chat.
That's good,
and
yeah.
not have meetings. But we found that when you're small and there's a lot of things you need to communicate, it's not really the best method to communicate because if you're busy, you're not really looking at a Skype chat that's come on your computer if you're on the phone and it distracts you. So we found that meetings are really the best method of communication.
You agree, Jeff?
Absolutely, and that communication, and again, with a small organization, that communication is ideal. It's what makes the organization function on a day in and day out basis, is to know where everybody stands and to be able to pick up other things if need be, or to move forward with other projects and be able to prioritize what's going on.
Right. Well, it's almost time for a break. We're going to come back and we're going to talk a little bit about quality insurance and quality assurance and some of the third-party compliance observations. So it is time for that station break. We'll be right back with our special guests, Cynthia Karnick and Jeff Beck. So don't touch that dial.
Join our mission to proclaim the gospel of Jesus Christ. Every week we feature a medley of gifts from artists, performers, ministers, and more. Experience the Lord's everlasting light in the cool of the day.
Welcome back. You're watching Skills to Pay the Bills with our special guests from GovPartners, Cynthia Karnick, Founder and Chief Executive Officer, and Jeff Beck, Director of Contracts. For those of you that are tuning in rather late, GovPartners provides complete acquisition management and support services for government contracting. Right before the break, Cynthia and Jeff, I wanted to ask you a little bit about your quality assurance and third-party compliance observation services for the government and the commercial clientele that you have. And I don't know how much you can share without violating any top secret clearances, but whatever you can share with us about that, I think our viewers would be interested.
Yeah, absolutely. So the third-party observation, and as Cynthia mentioned before we kind of move to the break or whatever, it is a key important part. It's a new division that we're really focused on and moving forward. And basically, we're evaluating services of transit agencies, government, as well as commercial sector groups in rail, bus, airports, and other divisions from that standpoint, to be able to evaluate not only their customer service, although that's a key component, but also some of their safety requirements, their security requirements, and ultimately, as it ties into the rest of our organization, those contract compliance requirements of what means to move forward with those pieces.
Mm-hmm. Cynthia, do you have anything you want to add to that?
Sure, absolutely. And those components are basically the next phase is once we send out evaluators. So we have a team of anonymous evaluators who kind of act as customers, so they blend in. And then report the findings. And the findings that we report are typically, like Jeff said, in safety operations, customer service experience, integrity. And we provide reports for every single experience that we have that is also provided to our customers. So they take that information, and it's valuable because there are issues, there may be things that they need to fix, whether it's appearance or the customer service if there was an issue with one of the employees. And that they can actually do some corrective actions quickly. We also have what we call prompt notifications, where we notify them immediately if it's a safety factor. Okay. And then we don't just observe the things that need fixing. We also identify things that are outstanding. So it's from both sides of the spectrum. If we see something that was done really well by one of the employees, or there's something that we think, or it's very objective, but experience that we had that was above and beyond what we expected. We note that too. And then we also, kind of look at things that might be things that they want to look at in the future. So there's proactive things that they can put in place to mitigate any problems in the future.
Okay. Well, how does the market research portion, fit with the third party?
Sure.
How does that work? How do they come together?
Absolutely. We really see that third-party observation piece as being part of market research. It's a component of the overall market research. So those pieces that we've just been talking about are one component of the market research services that we offer. We also offer very specific customized projects for clients to do market research pieces with surveys and reporting mechanisms to help them make business decisions, be it government sector and to some degree commercial sector as well, to make decisions to move forward. So some of those pieces are an ongoing piece. We also do freedom of information request.
FOIA, right?
FOIA pieces, absolutely.
FOIA.
So we help some of those processes. So with the federal government, with the FOIAs, or PARPs with some of the local agencies, which is a public records request, the same type of concept, but with the local agencies. So we do a lot of those things on an ongoing basis. And then we also can do different types of customer service and satisfaction surveys and different pieces so that we can provide ongoing data analytics. And then, just like with the third-party observations, we can provide the next step. How can they improve based on the research that we've been able to provide for them? And we do that in conjunction with whoever that client is, be it commercial sector or government sector. We want to work with them as that partner. Back to the partnering piece, we want to work with them as much as possible to ensure that we're getting all the information they need. And if we need to make adjustments along the way, we're able to do that to be able to meet what's necessary.
Wow.
Absolutely.
I also noticed on your website that you have a couple of partners, unique partners, and one is a GSA partner and the Pro Partner. How do they differ? Is it two totally separate animals, or do they also connect at some point?
Well, they are different services that we offer. So the way our website is broken out is there's partnerships for each different type of service that we offer. So for the GSA partners, that is for GSA schedules. So if a company is looking for someone to help them get on a GSA contract for the General Services Administration, we provide that service. So we provide the preparation and full support from beginning to end to award to get them on a GSA contract. And then Pro Partners is proposal partners. If companies are looking for someone to help them with preparing and submitting their proposal for a specific request for proposal, RFI, or request for information, we can certainly do that too. So those are all kind of the services that come together to provide the full service, full cycle services that we provide for government procurement and acquisition.
So if I'm a small business and I'm lucky enough to get a contract and I get it and I say, oh my goodness, I got this, I don't know where to start. I don't know how to put this together. Is that where I would call you,
yes,
Jeff?
Absolutely.
And then, so what would what would our conversation be like? What would you need from me?
For the initial, if it's a contract that you haven't responded to yet and you want to respond to it to see if you can get the award, the conversation would typically be, we're looking we want to respond to this contract, and then we have a customer questionnaire of things that we need to know to make sure that they first have the pre-qualifications to go after it. Okay. Mainly if they're how many years they've been in business, if they have prior past performance experience in that that's relevant to the contract, how many employees, just to kind of look at the prerequisites. So once we get all that information, and we determine that they've kind of can move forward, then we start the process of determining the level of effort that we would need to put forth for the contract. If it's small and it's just them as the contractor and we're going after it, and it's and then also the timing that it's going to take for us to respond if we have a short suspense, which we do get a lot of those from customers. It's due next week, and it's next week. So it just depends on the timing, and so we put the level of effort to that, and then we talk through it, and then we make sure that they completely understand what the compliance is, and then once we also do a preliminary compliance check of the contract to say, here are the things that you're going to need in order to respond, and we want to make sure you have these in place. Otherwise, you wouldn't be compliant and wouldn't be considered, and we don't want to take your money, for nothing. Yeah. So
have you had to tell some people that?
Absolutely.
Where they thought that they were ready to go, and when you look through all the paperwork?
Yes, absolutely.
Is that tough?
It's very hard to do, but it's easier to do that than to have false expectations with them, and then when they lose, they don't understand why they lost.
Right.
So we prefer to have that conversation up front, and it's hard, but they understand it more than if we tell them, look, if we did go through this process, you're going to pay, to get this done, and we know that you're not going to get the award because, you're not compliant
Right.
with these issues.
Right.
So we tell them then that, they need to, if they want to go after those type of opportunities, then now they have the time to prepare to get those non-compliant things corrected for the next opportunity.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Well, there's one thing that is near and dear to my heart, and that's families. I'm just really pro-family all the way. And I think, and I don't know if this is just me feeling this way, is that successful small businesses do so much better when they have the support of their family. So if you guys could just speak a little bit, do you agree with that? And just talk a little bit about your families and how they support you or they don't support you. You can be honest with us.
Okay. Yeah, I'll take it and then Jeff can chime in. But
Okay.
when I starting GovPartners was a very I'm of course married, and my husband said, you want to leave this executive position to go start a company. And he was a little nervous about it because there's that security blanket. And he had the confidence to say, okay, if that's what you want to do. But the support was really critical because I know a lot of people who don't have the support of the spouse. And so they kind of go back to going to that comfort level because they don't have it. But my spouse has been very supportive, and he's also, part of, the organization and helps and, is very, I travel a lot. I mean, a lot of my contracts are international. So I go to different places like Afghanistan and Africa, and he's never said, no, you can't do this, you can't do that. And so it's very important. And there has to be a balance. And so for the first 5 years, I keep joking now because we just celebrated our 5 year.
Yes.
And I keep saying, okay, now the baby's going to kindergarten. So now I should have some time to get back to the family and spend some time with the rest of the family because, there'll be, so that's kind of how I feel with the business at the 5 year mark. You can kind of relax a little bit and say, okay, I don't have to, work 300%, maybe I can scale that down and, make sure that, there's a balance
Right.
of family and work. Because, initially when there wasn't, it's just really important that you have the support of the family to
Right.
understand, you might not be around a lot.
Right, that's right. I agree with that. Jeff,
Yeah,
what about
and
you?
absolutely, that family component makes a big difference. My wife supports 100% the ability, and because there's times and there's different activities at different times that need to change and need to be able to be there to make things function with the business, and that has to be a balance with home as well, and she supports that very well on a regular basis. So that's a big plus, and it's a great thing for me.
Now, Cynthia, you mentioned that you travel a lot internationally. What about Jeff? Do you kind of keep things going?
Well,
here?
yeah, I definitely am
Keeps
at the
the
office
machine
more
running.
and do some more limited travel, and probably a little bit more with these third-party observation components that we're focusing on in the new division. Probably my travel is going to pick up a little bit to focus on some of those components. So.
And I know a part of your business is also staffing. I don't know that that's a large part. It may be a smaller component of the staffing. But when you staff, are you staffing for the contracts that are awarded to you, or are you looking for staff for the actual client? How does that work?
The staffing typically is for the contract that either, if we're working on a contract for one of our clients and it requires additional staff, for example, if it's in Afghanistan and they need all of these additional people to work in Afghanistan, then we typically will help locate those staff through working through staffing companies, or going out and posting jobs for that position ourselves. And then once that position is found, then we pre-vet them before the company that we're working for interviews them, and we kind of pass on the ones that pass it. Mm-hmm. So we help in that regard. And then we also become part of that contract administration staff and project management staff to help, make sure that if there's additional needs for the staffing, throughout the life of the contract, that we help support that. And then for our contracts as well, we are always looking for additional staff to support the contracts that we're on as a prime contractor.
Well, our time is almost up. I thank you so much,
Oh,
both of
thank
you, for
you.
coming out on
Thank you.
this Good Friday.
Oh, no, it's our
We
pleasure.
really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And
Thank you for having us.
I'm going to ask you if you will be willing to come back.
Absolutely.
Because I have a
Absolutely.
feeling there's more. I want to hear more about the international perspective that
sure.
you do. So, well, again, we thank Cynthia and Jeff for introducing us to GovPartners. If you have any needs in this area of acquisition management or support services or third-party evaluations, program management and deployment services, or staffing, please give Cynthia or Jeff a call. Their information is scrolling on your television screen right now. Thank you so much for watching Skills to Pay the Bills. We look forward to seeing you on our next segment. Bye-bye.